Hello. Uh-oh. Where's
What are
this
you?
mic? Where's this mic coming from? Holy the
What,
fuck.
Mike? What are you talking about? Are you
So,
alive?
no, something's wrong here.
What do you mean?
It's picking up my mic, and it shouldn't be.
Why shouldn't it be?
Hello?
I can hear you. Are you alive? Did you die?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but it's way worse now.
It's worse?
Yeah, way worse.
Really?
Sounded way better before.
I'm using my good mic now.
Sounded way better before. I'm not joking.
What the fuck? Is this new webcam I got? They have a better mic?
Oh wait, maybe. Hold on. Hold on. Talk again.
I just switched it.
That one sounds pretty good.
This one sounds good. All right. And this is
That
the
one sounds worse. Not joking. First one sounded way better.
seriously?
I'm not joking. First one sounded way better.
I bought this fucking expensive mic like, 3 years
Maybe you just
ago.
need to turn it up, but like you're much quieter and you're much like lower, like your tone is much lower.
Really? That's
Yeah.
weird. Maybe I need to
Whereas,
turn the gain up a little bit.
yeah, whereas in the other one, you sound fucking
But
delicious.
how's
Just
this one?
delicious.
Still shitty? Okay, I'll switch to the other one then. Fuck it. Weird. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com, your home for the very best fantasy basketball tools and articles on the internet. Go check them out. #basketball.com. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me at the end of a long, nasty season, a bitter season, full of joy and sorrow and magic. Irving Magic Johnson suddenly quitting. Is my co-host, Tyler Watts. What's up, Tyler?
So yeah, that did that trump its way into the strangest story of the season on the very last day.
I think it did. That was like the craziest day of the whole season. There's like a ranking out there, and they said, like the backdoor passage fight was number one, and then like April, whatever it was, 9th or whatever, is kind of the second craziest day with Dirk, Wade, Jamal going off, and then Magic Johnson just quitting
Um,
out of
so
nowhere.
so I think Magic just wanted the headlines. I don't know, but it was strange. And then the fact that he was like, "Yeah, I didn't even tell GD Bus. I knew she talked me out of it, so I'm just gonna tell you guys I'm quitting. Like I don't care."
He just did it. Like he just like screw it. I'm at it. I wanna successfully. I'd recommend this to everybody, but one of these days I'd like to quit my job just being like, I ain't gonna be here. Not gonna be here. That's a great quote from Magic Johnson. That's a great way to quit your job. Shout out to everybody who's quit a job they hated, because you should quit a job you hate, man. Like just do it.
Well, and for Magic, like I can only assume he's a man who doesn't need the money, and
Certainly does not.
he doesn't need the headache. So unless you're loving it, like I don't really blame the guy, right? Like if you're hating it, there's no reason for him to do it. Like some people, they get kind of stuck in a job that they hate because they need the money or whatever,
Yeah, that
whatever.
makes perfect
But
sense.
but I feel like Magic has none of those reasons. Magic can just be like, "Yo, I'm Magic Johnson. I'll do whatever I want."
Yeah, it's just like,
Um,
you know what? I'm just gonna leave. Like right now.
and we talked about this, I think, last summer when LeBron came a little bit. LeBron coming makes your team better, sure, because LeBron is one of the best, if not the best player in the NBA, right? But there's also a circus that follows LeBron, with all the media and all the attention and all those things. And it also you also then have to build the team around LeBron, right? Like LeBron is a player who has his deficiencies but he has his things he's definitely going to do. So it kind of in a lot of ways made Magic's job harder because then he had the player he had to build a team around, right? Like he didn't have a lot of options at that point.
Yeah, it permeates out, right? It's like LeBron's here, so we have to do everything LeBron wants. We can't do what the team needs. We have to do what LeBron needs. And then that permeates out another layer where it's like, well, the president has to work with LeBron on all the different, any move you make has to go through LeBron. And then that permeates out even further where like Clutch Sports, who LeBron has a stake in, who manages tons of players, tries to manipulate the field. And I honestly think that entire thing they tried to do with the Anthony Davis, I think it was awesome that it blew back in their face because I don't think the Lakers were like, hey, Clutch Sports, go and get Anthony Davis and let's burn the Pelicans real bad. Let's like get them to like guilt trip them into it and put out all this negative media and all this other crap to manipulate the storylines because that's obviously worked in the past for Clutch Sports and LeBron. Like there's no way LeBron wasn't a part of that strategy meeting. There's no way he wasn't part of that strategy meeting. And for that to come burn LeBron, I mean, it goes to show you, like, he's one of the greatest players ever, but he certainly is. He's no GM, like, and he's really been kind of detrimental to the places that he's left in his wake, and some of the players and some of the organizations and almost every single coach he's left in his wake. He's been detrimental to them.
Well, and rightfully or wrongfully for the coach part of it, right? Like, you always get that narrative that, oh, it's LeBron's team. You know, he's making some of these decisions and he's telling the coach this needs to happen and that needs to happen. And, you know, whether that's actually happening or not, or it's just something to write about.
I think a lot of that's to write about because it's like, I kind of do want LeBron coaching these, like, running plays and coaching this team. He's a basketball genius.
Well, and two, it's not like they're, 12-year-olds that don't really know how to play the game or how to set up the game, right? Like, these are grown men who've played basketball their entire lives. And, a lot of the coaching is done right behind the scenes, like on the floor. You're not going to do a ton of coaching. Although, shout out to Pop. He had my favorite coaching moment of the season against the Mavericks in their last game. Did you see it by chance?
I did not.
So they gave Dirk the ball with like a minute to go, and they had been double teaming Dirk like the whole game, especially in like the mid range, kind of that like high post area where Dirk, is ungodly good. Yeah. They've been double teaming the whole game. So Lonnie Walker, rookie for the Spurs, comes over to double team, and you can find this clip a lot of places because this is the last basket Dirk makes in his career. Pop is on the sidelines waving his arms in the air like as high as he can get them, telling Lonnie Walker to get out of the way so Dirk can make his last shot.
Yeah, and like, come on, man.
It is priceless because like Pop is it's the most demonstrative I think I've ever seen Pop. He's like waving his arms in the air as high as they can possibly go, telling him like, don't double, don't do it.
Like, stop, let Dirk go off, you idiot. Then again, Pop was the one instructing them to double him earlier in the game. So like, Pop has got it both ways.
Now, in Pop's defense, right, the Spurs had something to play for. They could move up their playoff seeding if they won the game. Yeah. They wanted to win the game, right? But at that point, there was a minute to go. They were ahead by like 15. You know what I mean? At that moment, Pop was like, "Hey, man,
just not the time,
right? Just let Dirk get a couple here. Let's go off into the sunset."
Pop is great. Dirk is great. Shout out to Dirk. I guess Wade retired too. I'm not going to shout out Wade. Not interested.
I didn't catch all of his game because obviously I was watching. That was actually not Dirk's last game, right? That was his last home game in the night where he actually announced he was going to retire, which that kind of caught me by surprise. Just in the sense that I figured he'd kind of wait, and then like this summer, just one day, like do the Tim Duncan, right? Just one day be like, yeah, I'm not going to play anymore. Like, I don't want to. It's hard. My feet hurt. I'd
like to give a shout out to Dirk for the last couple weeks. He was kind of semi-relevant to probably people who are still playing down the stretch.
Oh yeah, Dirk, and
he stayed relevant his entire career.
And whether, it was maybe he knew it was the end, or whether, he actually finally got somewhat healthy. He looked like he was moving better. He threw down a couple dunks, which was cool to see.
He threw down that dunk. That was awesome.
And he looked better. And yeah, he looked in the last few weeks. It looked like he could have played another season and actually been somewhat relevant.
Yeah, I think he could. I think it's smart for him to go out on his own terms. But this guy, legitimately, last season on totals was the 51st ranked player. Last season when he played like 24 minutes a game.
Oh yeah, and
he's almost a top 50 player.
Say what you want about Dirk, still when he gets in that kind of high post range, no one can guard him.
Yeah. So we're doing the fantasy basketball end of the year awards. We're giving you a good, I guess, intro into what was happened over the last week here. And I'm actually going to start out with a award we did not talk about for the show. I'm going to give Dirk the Lifetime Achievement Award for Fantasy Basketball Excellence. It's only gone to a handful of people. I think Tim Duncan is probably one of them. KG. I don't know if Chris Paul will get it. Chris Paul seems like somebody who will end up with the fantasy basketball. You got to have a long, storied career of being fantasy relevant for a very long time. And Dirk might be at the top of that list, or at least in the top 3.
21 years, right? All with the Mavericks, which was cool. Dirk, pretty darn good for every single one of those seasons. He's just amazing. And, I think maybe Charles Barkley said it best when he did that little speech post game after their last home game. He said, he's maybe the nicest person ever too, which matters for a lot.
Yeah, I think you got to root with him, and luckily he'll be around the Mavericks for probably the rest of his life. He will be an ambassador, kind of like Scottie Pippen is or was or something. With the Bulls. I think Scottie Pippen just sits courtside with his guys and yells at people. I don't know what he does, what kind of an ambassadoring he's doing.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of ways to help, right? Especially when you've played at that high a level and you were an all-time great player. There's a lot of ways you can help, and some of these people probably don't listen to you, but what does a coach do, right? I mean, he just tells people what he thinks they should do. So, I mean, in that sense, Scottie Pippen might be helping in that way.
Yeah, maybe. You're giving way too much credit, Tyler. But yeah, this is the end of the year awards. Congratulations, you guys. You made it to the end of the year, made it to another fantasy basketball season. And I want to give a quick shout out to Fear the Beard, who won our first annual March Madness tournament because Virginia pulling it off, even though they should have lost like 3 rounds ago, and then they should have lost a round after that, the round after that. Fear the Beard, who was not doing very well, ended up taking first place because he was the only person to pick Virginia to win the entire tournament. So good for him.
Does he fear your beard?
He should. He should fear my beard.
That goes to show you too, for everyone who likes to do a million of those bracket challenges. On most of the sites, especially the big ones, just picking the winner automatically vaults you into like the top 25% of the thing.
Yeah.
You could, because obviously if you pick the winner, you have to pick them in every round. So those points alone, especially if it's a winner that not everyone's picking, like if the favorite wins, it's not going to work out. But if you pick any team that's not the favorite, you're automatically like in the top 25% of the thing.
Yeah, that alone gets you, and I'm looking at it right here, 560 points. And, this guy did pretty well in the first 2 rounds, getting 220 points in the first round, 280 points in the second round. And, just because he got one team right for the last 3 rounds, that was more points than his first 2 rounds where he got like a majority of the games right. It's much, much harder. I think those games earlier should be weighted more because it's much harder to get those games right.
And
that's not true. Statistically, it's actually harder to get the champion right.
Well, yeah, because obviously you've got to pick them in every round.
Statistics.
But my point being, if you're throwing a lot of darts, right, or like you just are in some bracket pool that you really want to win, my recommendation would be don't pick the favorite. and pick a team that you think has a chance to win.
But pick
And
like a top 5 team.
Right. Well, for me, a lot of times I go for coaches, right? Like the big coaches. I go for like a Michigan State, a Duke. You know, if they're not the favorite, a team that looks like they're still pretty strong. Obviously, I don't know that has. It's been a while since like not top 3 seed is won, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you're gonna want to pick like still a team that's like in the top 3 seeds, but yeah, I think that's kind of how you win that thing. Just a tip for next year, I guess.
Yeah, another good March Madness. It's kind of it's the best time of the year. We got March Madness leading into the end of the NBA season, right into the NBA playoffs, which are upon us already. A quick turnover into the NBA players.
Okay.
I'm very, very excited about the playoffs.
Three playoff questions, and then we got to get going on this because we wasted a lot of time.
I know we've wasted all the time on these awards.
Okay, so 3 quick playoff questions. Team that plays the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. Go.
Oh, man. That's a really tough one. I'm going to go with Oklahoma City.
All right. I think the winner of that first round matchup between them and Portland goes. I'm going to go for Portland.
Wow. All right. That was a good question.
Okay, last two on the playoffs. 2 teams that play each other in the Eastern Conference Final.
Bucks, Raptors.
Oh, see, I'm going Celtics and 76ers.
Really? You're going the exact opposite. Huh?
I am going the exact opposite. Team that makes it out of the West.
Golden State.
Or out of the East. Out of the East, I'm sorry.
Raptors.
I'm going for Celtics.
Interesting. I don't think the Celtics have a. That's not true. I think they have a chance. Obviously.
I think they'll right the ship. I think they'll get it. They'll get it on track.
They haven't righted that ship all season long.
Here's the thing, though.
They are well coached.
If they can beat the Bucks and the Sixers make it, they always beat the Sixers. So that's their path, right? They obviously have to beat the Bucks. They have to win in the first round too. Don't get me wrong, but they're playing the Pacers, right? Who they lost Victor Oladipo. That should be a relatively easy series to win. Then they got to beat the Bucks, who are a great team, but I mean they haven't really done much in the playoffs. I understand they have a new coach and Giannis is better, but that's a winnable series. And then they got to hope the Sixers win because they always trash the Sixers, and then they're in the finals and they're going to lose to Golden State.
Yeah, I think anybody and everybody's going to lose to Golden State, but Houston's really hot, and I actually think it's kind of sad that we're not going to have the best matchups. We're going to have Raptors, Sixers in the second round. We're going to have probably a Houston, Golden State in the second round, and honestly, Houston, Golden State might be the best series of the entire, just like it was last year.
Well, and it'll be like a little bit deflating maybe when we get to that conference finals. That it's like, man, they were just
they might just whoop up on whoever for Oklahoma City, but I don't know. Oklahoma City's got that chip on their shoulder. That could be very interesting.
I don't know. I don't think that's much of a series. I think they just smash them.
Yeah, it could get interesting. Maybe you never know. That's the beauty of the NBA plays. You never know what's going to happen.
Well, and I mean,
someone could get kicked in the groin and get suspended, and somehow lose the entire finals. You never know.
Well, and I mean, we've seen it in the past. Guys get hurt. You know what I mean? The Rockets weren't
the same last year.
That's what I mean. The Rockets weren't the same last year once Chris Paul got hurt. So
that's true.
A lot can change.
That is very true. So let's get to these the annual fantasy basketball awards that we do every single year. We got our standard awards: MVP, Rookie of the Year, Most Improved Player, Defensive Player of the Year. And then we have, some kind of honorable mentions like, what's some of the most surprising players, most disappointing players, most hated player, just someone and that's just I hated this guy this year in fantasy basketball. You can hate him for any reason you particularly want. It's a wide open. It's kind of like it's up to the person's interpretation what the most valuable player is. Most hated player, it's up to your interpretation. The most picked up player. So someone who kept getting dropped and picked up all season long. And then
that's Mike's personal favorite award. He loves that award every year. The most picked up.
That is my favorite. It's it used to be called the Waiver Wire Whore Award, the Triple W, but the company made me change the name.
The Triple W. I like that. That's my favorite.
The company made me change the name on that one. And Most promising. So like maybe someone to look forward to next year. And I'm going to be making my most promising pick on the fly. I have a few picks in mind, but let's just get started with the top of the charts. MVP of the year. And we actually split on MVP of the year, Tyler, which seems hard to do because you can just look at the rankings and just go, well, this guy's number one. So
well, and here's why I think you blew this. Now, yours is more of a sentimental pick, I guess, because
not sentimental. I have a good reason.
So as far as looking just at value too, it wasn't just that James Harden was the best player. He was the best player by a significant margin. We talk about adding up, kind of Z scores. His was 1.27. No other person was over 1. So he was that and a quarter better than pretty much everybody else.
It's pretty good.
He averaged 36 points. He averaged almost 5 3-pointers, 6.6 rebounds, 7.5 assists, 2.1 steals, 0.7 blocks, shot good percentages on high volume. Yeah, James Harden was the best, and I really don't see how you went with this other guy. Although I did mention it was surprising that he ranked as high as he did.
Yeah, and actually, this is the reason why most valuable means different things to different people when they're doing it in the regular season, and in fantasy basketball can mean different things too. James Harden most likely got picked first or maybe even second in your league, but Paul George probably might have got picked up in the second round, maybe even in the middle of the second round.
So here's my question.
And where you picked him, he was easily the most valuable player because, and I almost gave him most improved award because to go from someone who is a second round in the first round, second player to the second best player in the league is just as hard to do than going from 70th to 30th,
I'll give you that. And if you would have picked him in that category, I would have been fine with it. But if you're going to look at your MVP that way, then why wasn't it Vucevic? Who went probably outside the top 50.
Vucevic wasn't a top player.
He was 10th in total value, and he went outside the top 50.
He was 10th. I mean, I think Bush might get the most improved player on.
Well, and I'm not talking most improved. Like, if you're going to look at MVP as like a player who most outperformed their draft day value, to me it was Vooch. To be a first round pick in any league, right? Like pretty much every league is at least 10 teams from a player that was outside the top 50. And in some leagues, like now, not mostly in leagues I was in, because once it got to like pick 50, I was not passing up Vooch because I figured he'd have a strong season. Now I didn't expect he would be in the top 10, but there were leagues I saw that people sent me like, yeah, I got Vucevic at like 65. And
yeah,
you know what I mean? So to me, like you had to pick Paul George in that second round. So if you're going to make your MVP case is like the person
I'm not making it based off that. I'm making it based off of if he was the most important player on your fantasy basketball team. And I think for a lot of teams, Paul George was the most important player on their fantasy basketball team because of the leap he took, because of his absurd steals, because of his great scoring and 3-point. And a lot of people probably took him because they were like, I'm at the end of the first round, beginning of the second round. I didn't get a shot at any of the top guys. Well, they got a top guy, and that's
well. And this was maybe one of our better calls. I mean, I think in the preseason I was advocating to pick Paul George in that first round.
That he probably was the reason you won, or probably finished fairly well this year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Shout out to Vucevic though. He should also get an honorable mention. So honorable mention MVP, third in MVP voting is Vucevic. Good for him. Let's go on to the next award. I've already forgotten which it was. Oh, it's the Rookie of the Year. And we're split again here, Tyler. I know you got your boy. And so you got to go with him. And I'm just going to let you wax on about him. Go ahead.
So if I'm looking at a rookie that I want for next year, right, and we could already say he had the best stats, and I know Trae Young was good after the All-Star break. Yeah, what you forgot is Luka Doncic was just as good and getting more rebounds. Now, he couldn't match his assist numbers. Trae Young averaged 8.1 assists. Luka only averaged 6 assists a game. But looking forward, right, The kid averaged 21.2 points, 2.3 3-pointers, 7.8 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.1 steals, 0.3 blocks. The percentages weren't great. I think that's going to be where he takes the big leap forward next year. I think he could quickly be a guy who averages like 24, 25 points a game. The assist numbers are probably going to go up a little bit. The rebound numbers are probably going to go up a little bit. Kristaps Porzingis, not a great rebounder. Luka Doncic averaged close to 10 rebounds a game down the stretch once the Mavericks made all those trades. So if they don't bring in a center that's a big rebounder, he could get you like 8, 9 rebounds a game next year. I just think, he had a great fantasy season. I think he's the best fantasy rookie in this class.
Yeah. I think that's yeah, he's great. And we all love Luka. And he's obviously the rookie of the year in real life, right? Like, that's not even a question.
Yeah, so I wrote a nice piece about 5 reasons he deserved the award. And in the last one, I compared him to Trae Young. And I wasn't trying to hate on Trae Young, right? Because Trae Young had a great season. But there were literally assists and one advanced metric that Trae Young rated better for the full season. So if you're making a Trae Young case over Luka for rookie of the year, it's got to mostly be based on like post All-Star break production, which we talk about isn't even half the season. And I don't know. I just think that's a mistake. Like, it's a rookie of the year, not rookie of the last 20 games.
That's true. You got to be good all year. And Trae Young was great down the stretch, but Luka was great all year long. And shout out to Trae Young, who everybody had a good laugh when that trade went down. And Trae Young looks pretty legit. Like, he looks good. He's not a bust. So a lot of people thought he was going to be, and he's not. And I'm pretty pleased with that. But Trae Young is not my rookie of the year.
So is the Hawks GM a scary guy going forward?
I don't know,
because he kind of nailed that trade there.
I mean, a broken clock is right twice a day, right?
I guess, but they're building kind of an interesting team, and then they could have 2 top 10 picks this year.
That's true. I mean, the Hawks, I think they brought in a lot more front office talent over this year. I think they maybe scammed some people off the West Coast. And that's what they need to do. It's certainly what the Bulls need to do, Tyler. Get some better people in the front office. But we can't go there today. I want to give a shout out to all the pretty good rookie class. A lot of people didn't think it'd be that great. And you got, 6 guys who are in the top 100 on total value for 8 categories, with Colin Sexton and Jaren Jackson Jr. kind of following up the back in total value and per game value. I like Wendell Carter Jr. next year, Jaren Jackson Jr. next year. Mitchell Robinson got honorable mention as my rookie of the year due to the fact that he probably swung a lot of leagues down the stretch with all those blocks. But my number 1 rookie of the year is DeAndre Ayton. He only played 30 minutes a game, averaged 16 and 10, 2 assists, almost a steal, almost a block a game. He had a great field goal percentage. And all around, he's just this really solid, dependable big man who doesn't really hurt you anywhere. 2 assists could be better. He's not hitting threes, so that's a problem when it comes to the modern big man. But 16 and 10 with good free throw percentage, good field goal percentage, plus a block and a steal, that's hard to come by. He ended up finishing per game 41st and per totals 43rd. So that's shout out to DeAndre Ayton.
I will say that he's probably maybe my most likely rookie to own next year, because I don't think he got a lot of hype.
No, I think no one watched a Phoenix game this year. I certainly did.
And I think if the big sites make the mistake of ranking him kind of outside that top 50, he could be a nice draft day little bargain there. Whereas you're going to see Luka and Trae Young like probably going in that 2nd, 3rd round kind of range, and we're talking 4th, 5th round for Ayton, and Ayton may be just as good for fantasy because, like you mentioned, he got 16 and 10. He's one of those guys, though, like...
Not a lot of rebounders out there anymore.
Well, and he's one of those guys that he kind of can do everything other than 3-pointers, so...
And are we sure that 3-pointers will never be in his game?
No, and I don't swear off anybody at this point making
That's
three-pointers
for sure.
when we've seen some of these guys like never shoot a three-pointer for 5 years into their
Was
career.
that
And then,
Marcus Sol?
yeah, Marcus Gasol did it.
Out of nowhere.
There's been numerous big men in the last couple years that have done that. Like they've literally played 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, like never shot a three-pointer, and then they start averaging like over one a game.
I think I saw Robin Lopez shoot a three-pointer.
Dude, Salam Mejri for the Mavericks, who like was always just kind of a low post guy. Like down the stretch of the season when he was actually playing like 18, 20 minutes, he was firing like 4 3-pointers a game.
That's wild. Even Boban hit a three.
That's what I mean. Like the league is trying to get everybody to do it, so I'm going to assume that Ayton eventually does it. But yeah, he's just one of those guys
Even
that
DeMar DeRozan hit a three.
But Ayton though is one of those guys who can help you in every category, and we talk about those guys being, kind of good stuffers in that 50 to 60 range.
Yeah, it doesn't really hurt you anywhere. Luka Doncic in a head-to-head league maybe a little more preferable, but in a roto league, there are some issues with Luka Doncic's current game. But both of those guys will probably get better with time. The next award that we have is the Most Improved Award, and we were on the same page here. It's got to be Pascal Siakam. This guy came out of nowhere, and he ended up finishing 8-cat total value at 27th overall, ahead of Klay Thompson for the year. Congratulations, Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, and when you go from literally undrafted in almost every league to a top 30 player, it's almost impossible not to pick you. But I will give 2 shout-outs that I think – actually, I'll give 3. D'Angelo Russell finishing 19th.
Okay, yeah. Really great year from D'Angelo. Don't think he's going to be overlooked next year, especially with this playoff performance he's about to have.
And 2 Sacramento Kings. Buddy Hield finishing 24th and De'Aaron Fox finishing 25th.
Really? That is much higher than I thought they would be. Wow. A shout out to them. And also, those are 2 guys. Now, they did play, 81 and 82 games. But those are 2 guys I'd be keeping an eye on next year because they did not get a lot of publicity last year. And I don't think they'll get a lot of publicity going into the season next year either.
And here's maybe an overarching point that we can talk about a little bit, and I think we'll talk about more this summer. You talked about there's not many guys grabbing 10 rebounds, assists. If you get a lot of assists, like if you're over 7 assists a game, that gives you a huge, huge boost to your value because There's just not many guys getting 7 assists. Like 7 assists per game from D'Angelo Russell gave you 2.14 Z-score, which is really good and pretty elite. So anyone who's getting 7 assists is someone you want to look for next year.
Yeah, three of those top 12 7+ assist guys are actually forwards.
Yeah, so I mean that's great.
So keep it like you said, De'Aaron Fox is up there, and then Trae Young, who could be increasing his assists next year. I think that would be nice to see. And you also have some guys who are sneaking up on that 7 assist mark, like Devin Booker and down the stretch, Bradley Beal. So these are guys who I don't think I would ever expect. Luka Doncic makes sense. Kim Walker, okay. Giannis even. Yeah, that, of course. But I never thought I'd see like Booker and Bradley Beal become kind of like a super versatile point guard like that.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. You got to think the Suns are probably going to pick a point guard because unless they win the first pick and get Zion, they're not going to want to pick another shooting guard, small forward type, are they? Like they just keep picking those, and I don't understand why. So you got to think they're going to try to pick either Darius Garland or Ja Morant. So that could change Booker's game a little bit, and it'll be really interesting to see what the Wizards do too because, well, they're not going to have John Wall. They're going to pay him big money. Do they just kind of tank the season? Do they trade Beal? Do they keep Beal? What goes on there?
That's going to be a real mess. But luckily, John Wall will be out for quite a bit. Not for John Wall or any John Wall fans, but for me, who has Bradley Beal next year in his keeper league. I'm going to vet a award real quick, Tyler. I'm going to vet one. Most boring player. And it's because I saw this guy's name. And I was like, Oh man, that guy's boring. Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday is boring, and Drew Holiday is good. He was the 20th ranked player in totals for 8 cat leagues this year, only playing 67 games and still getting 20th. I don't think at one point this season I was like, man, Drew Holiday. Never said it once.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and it'll be interesting to see if Anthony Davis goes. Do they trade Holiday too, or is he kind of the face of that team next year? And if he is, can he keep up the really good efficiency with maybe not a lot around him?
Maybe. I don't know. A lot to be figured out this offseason. And throughout this offseason, we will be sure to keep you updated on the fantasy impact of, obviously, the lottery, the NBA draft. And once free agency opens, hey, guys, NBA basketball never stops. It's 12 months a year. It's 365. And we will, if there's something big that happens, we will be bringing you a podcast to recap that throughout the summer. So I hope you can stay with us throughout the summer and keep supporting the show. Patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. Shout out to everybody who still supports the show. We got a few more awards to get through. Defensive Player of the Year. I actually had the guy we were just talking about, Anthony Davis. That guy is a monster.
Yeah, and
steals, blocks, rebounds. He's a monster.
It was a great pick, but he kind of killed teams down the stretch with the Pelicans limiting his minutes and limiting his games. So the guy I went with was Andre Drummond. And I went with him mostly because he is elite in the 3 defensive categories we talk about, right? Rebounds, 15.6. Nobody matched that this season. And then he gave you 1.7 steals and 1.8 blocks. So, you know, he played 79 games, so he was there the whole season. He got his free throw percentage up a little bit this year. Now, it was still bad, but I feel like if you had Drummond on your team, you did really well in those 3 defensive categories. So he was my defensive player of the year.
I like that. He was also great.
And he finished 14th, and that's not punting free throws.
Honestly, I might have to add Andre Drummond to my surprise value because I didn't think he would be 14th, and that is a surprise to me. Tyler, give me 2 of your favorite, most surprising players this season.
So I mentioned Vucevic. I think that one was probably my most surprising, right? We talk about how hard it is for people to vault into the top 10.
Almost impossible.
Vucevic coming kind of out of nowhere to do it was really crazy for me. Probably my next guy was LaMarcus Aldridge, who finished 18th. And I mean, he's an old guy, right? Like, we know he's been good for years, but for him to kind of take that leap up into the top 20 again.
Yeah, should we? I mean, I don't know. Should we be surprised, Tyler? He's been other than that year with Sacramento. Last year, he was 13th in totals. Should you have been surprised, or is it because everyone hates LaMarcus Aldridge?
But see,
and in fantasy, he's always really good.
I guess that's maybe the point I want to make here, and maybe the surprise wasn't the right word, but you know, old and good is usually still old and good until it's not.
People were more excited about Luka Doncic than LaMarcus Aldridge this year, and I bet you some people took Luka.
I guarantee that happens next year
LaMarcus.
too.
Probably, and there's no reason I'd see LaMarcus Aldridge not finishing in the top 25 once again. Always great.
And that's what I mean. And players like, you know, everyone gets hot on guys like Ben Simmons, right? De'Aaron Fox might be a player like that next year. Luka Doncic, Trae Young, like LaMarcus Aldridge finished better than all of them.
That's right.
He's probably going to do it again. And he's just a super efficient player too, which you got to love that if you're a roto guy, right? Like 51% from the field, 47 or 87% on his free throws, you know. Efficiency matters.
Yeah. I'd like to give an honorary most boring award to LaMarcus Aldridge.
You're handing out those most borings like crazy.
Go look at his game log, and it's like, oh boy.
I think I got your most surprising player. And this is kind of on the
20 and 6, 10 and 9, 20 and 7. So bored.
So here's the player I'm going to pick that you think was the most surprising. And it was only because I told you he was ranked 30th per game.
So other than Andre Drummond, because I had no idea.
It was
He was
Donovan
clicking.
Mitchell, right? Donovan Mitchell finished 30th in totals this year, playing
Yeah,
77 games.
I I still don't believe it. I think there's a typo or some sort of error. Um, actually, Donovan Mitchell, I was considering being in my most disappointing until you were like, no, Donovan Mitchell on totals, 30th overall, and I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Completely missed the boat on Donovan Mitchell. I know he had a really good second half, but still scored a bunch. Was pretty good at everything. It ended up shooting 43% from field goal, so like he got that percentage back up and almost a half a block a game, which is underrated.
Yep. And here's the other thing I'll say: Utah guys, other than Donovan Mitchell, probably slipped too far in your drafts next year. Rudy Gobert, 17th
Yeah,
again, where he was the
we
top.
liked Rudy Gobert going into this season.
Again, he was a top 20 player, and you'll probably see him going outside the top 20. Joe Ingles in the 44th. Again, you'll see him going outside the top 50. Utah is just one of those teams where their guys don't usually get enough love.
Hell, Derek Favors could have been in the mix for our next award, which is the most picked up. The most picked up award. Derek Favors was on the waiver wire in a lot of leagues. Derek Favors finished 73rd overall in totals. Maybe you should have. Maybe you should have kept him on your team, guys.
You blew it on the most picked up player.
I don't think so. I think
because I think it was this guy. Now, most picked up. Okay, there's a lot of ways you can look at this. You mentioned that it's on and off and on and off and on and off.
Yeah, this guy got picked up by like 6 people in your league. He couldn't stay on a team.
But the guy I was gonna go with was Montrezl Harrell, because I feel like there was a stretch in that early season where he was kind of up, down, up, down, up, down.
That's true, because he wasn't playing a lot of minutes. That's absolutely true.
Right, and then he caught on, and he ended up being a top 50 player. He ranked 47th for the season. So he was kind of up and down and up and down and up and down, and then one team maybe finally snagged him and kept a hold of him, and they got a top 50 player out of that. So that was the guy I was going to go with the most picked up.
I almost went with our boy Emmanuel Mudiay, because we mentioned him in every single waiver wire. But we also mentioned this other guy in every single waiver wire episode we did, and that was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who ended up finishing in the top 100.
He was 83rd. Now he played all 82. But
if you just would have kept him all season, you would have had the 84th best player, 83rd best player in the league.
Ranked ahead of John Collins. Now John Collins played 20 less games, but
that's true.
He ranked ahead of Paul Millsap, who played 70 games. He ranked ahead of Ricky Rubio. Like, Shai Gilgeous was good.
All right, before we get into the final awards, I want to give a quick shout out to one of the guys I wanted to do in my most surprising, Brook Lopez. Not surprising that he's good, but Brook Lopez reinventing himself as a Steph Curry shooting center was incredibly surprising.
Yeah, and he came back from the nothing, right? In that season for the Lakers, he was basically dropped in most leagues by the end of it, and he was the 31st ranked player. So
that is pretty good. Over 2 blocks, over 2 threes. That's a rare stat.
Yeah, but owning him is such a weird way to fill your center spot, right? Because you're only getting 12 points, which is not great. You're only getting 4 rebounds. So he's the best like punt rebounds guy.
That's true, because he's barely getting 5 rebounds.
Right, and then you're getting 2 threes and 2 blocks on pretty good percentages, right? Like if you're a team that's going guard heavy stats, like he's great. Because he doesn't get you a ton of assists, but he's going to be a guy, those 2 blocks, like we talk about guys getting blocks, right? There was very few men that got 2 blocks a game this season.
Yeah.
So he kind of probably kept you afloat. Like he made you not the worst team in that. So if it was a head-to-head league, you probably could beat a couple teams, maybe just on the back of Brook Lopez alone. And then you got the 2 threes, to go along with it, which definitely helped you in that category. I just feel like Brook Lopez, if you built the team, the right kind of team, Brook Lopez was probably one of the more valuable players on it.
Yeah, and like since he doesn't get those rebounds, you got a lot of guards hitting threes. He adds two threes to your game. Like overall, like he definitely was, I think, a game changer in quite a few leagues. Shout out to Brook Lopez. But I'm glad he rebounded from that experience
Oh, is that a
in
pun?
LA.
Is that a pun, Mike? Did you just pun?
Maybe. But not only that, I'm expertly segueing into another disappointing season that happened in LA, but not last year, but this year. Tyler, who's your most disappointing? We agreed on the most disappointing player.
It was LeBron James, and I don't think I don't think you can debate this one much. And I made this case to Mike at the beginning of before we first started talking tonight about doing this. He was the only first round player, right? The only player that probably mostly anyone picked in the first round who knew what they were doing that didn't finish in the top 15 or 20.
It's
You know what I mean? Like all those other first round guys, like even if you went with Kawhi Leonard, he only played 60 games, but he still finished 21st in total values. All those other guys that were first round picks were all way up there. LeBron finished 49th. Now, it was partially because he only played 55 games, but he killed you in free throws. His stats fell a little bit, right? He didn't play as many games. He was barely a top 50 player. And I think unless you picked LeBron and Paul George, you probably didn't win your league if you picked LeBron in the first round this year.
Yeah, I'm really going to doubt too many people unless they perfectly built around LeBron James and won enough of their head-to-head leagues and then figured out how to win in the playoffs without him, which I really doubt. So maybe he got you to the playoffs, but that's as far as he got you. And I was looking for somebody else to be the most disappointing player. That's when I started thinking about Donovan Mitchell, and you were like, no, he was actually really good. And the only guy who got honorable mention here, because it's definitely LeBron, is a CJ McCollum, who kind of considered in the past a third, fourth round pick, ended up 70th overall in 8-cat total value. So that's a pretty fall far. Yeah, that's the way you say it. A far fall for CJ McCollum.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. That was pretty disappointing. I'll mention Otto Porter, who finished 113th.
Okay, yeah. Very good mention.
We talked about him being a pretty safe guy and a good guy to get. Yeah, I'll mention that. And then you got another one of your awards that you're going to give this player to, I think. But Gordon Hayward was also, he picked in the top 50. He finished 117th. That was pretty disappointing as well.
Yeah, in fact, Gordon Hayward won this next award for me with flying colors, the most hated award. And that means literally whatever you want it to mean, however you hated this person, however you hated a situation. If you hated a coach, one of the coaches could be your most hated player or person of the fantasy basketball year. If you hated one of the coach's rotations that allowed you to not win any games, that's perfectly fine, Tyler. But I went with Gordon Hayward because as someone who should be bounced back and promising, he just never started. He never played well. He never could be consistent, and just really a worthless season for anyone who tried to hold on to him to gain value at all out of him. You couldn't.
And then he teased us with like a 30-point game and, a tease here and a tease there.
It wasn't like he was always terrible. It was like he was so mediocre that occasionally you'd be like, well, maybe next week.
And for going forward, right, depending on what the Celtics team looks like, right, do they make the big Anthony Davis trade? And we'll just throw all that out and assume that they're relatively back to this squad again. What the heck are we going to do with Gordon Hayward next year? He still shot 46% and 83%. So those were good. He still got you 4.5 rebounds and 3.4 assists in 26 minutes a game. So, it's going to be one of those players that could kind of shift your league, because if he goes outside the top 100 and the team, whatever team he's on, if it's Boston, if it's whoever, commits to giving him 30 minutes, we're talking about a pretty damn interesting fantasy guy.
We talk about those that first and second plateau, and he's easily someone who could finish at the top of that first plateau next year, even playing 31 minutes a game. I think if he falls into that second plateau, that 75 and later, in that group, you're looking for upside, and Gordon Hayward's got very good upside. So once you get into those later rounds, I don't think Gordon Hayward should fall past 100 next year.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like he could be definitely a guy who swings leagues because if he's rated like inside the top 50 again, and people are picking him there, and he busts, he could definitely hurt your team. If he's going at pick 100 and people pick him there, and he finishes in the top 30 or 40 again, like we've seen him do in the past, he's maybe going to swing your league that way. So
hell, if he finishes 50th overall, if you pick him on 100, that's pretty nice.
That's what I mean. So he's definitely going to be a divisive player moving forward. So my hated is going to go to an entire team.
Wow. Damn, Tyler. I thought I was the hater on this podcast.
And it's the Minnesota Timberwolves. And mostly, they still had talent who I love, and they have a lot of players who I love, but they were just so shady. And I'll throw the Knicks in there as an honorable mention for me because Fizdale ruined the rotation the whole season.
You can hate Fizdale. I think that's fair as an honorable mention.
But Minnesota, like they were just so shady with those injuries, right? Like when Robert Covington went down, they didn't make it seem that bad, and then he ended up missing the whole rest of the season and only played 35 games. They did that.
That was kind of unforgivable, the Covington situation.
They did that on again, off again thing with Jeff Teague for a while, where like it was the same injury, and then he'd play like 2 or 3 games at 30 minutes, then he'd sit out for another 2 or 3 games, and that didn't make any sense. They did some weird stuff with Derrick Rose. Like there's this whole Minnesota team, and I don't know what I want to call it, what the right word is. The craziness with the injuries, the secretiveness with the injuries. Like if the guy's hurt, just tell us. Just say, he's going to be out for 2 weeks. He's going to be out for like when Robert Covington got hurt, there's no way they couldn't have been like, yeah, he's going to be out for at least a month. You know what I mean? Like just say that. Yeah. No, you don't have to give us
some accuracy. This isn't like football or hockey where like the teams are going to use it against you. It's like,
well, and here's the other thing.
Covington's obviously out.
Well, and here's the other thing too. Like they were announcing Covington was out a lot of times the night before, so it's like the team had plenty of time to change their game plan. Yeah. So why didn't you just announce that he's out for a month? You know what I mean? And then
or the season, because apparently that was what happened.
And I get, especially some semi early on, you don't necessarily want to announce that because what if the player, gets better faster than you think he's going to? I mean, that's always a possibility. And like, if they're not having surgery or anything, like, right, most surgeries have a pretty strict timeline, but if it's just something that is non-surgical, you might heal faster than they think and get back on the court. So I get that, but like, I'm always fine with at least a month, 2 to 3 months. He's out 2 to 3 months. There's a big gap in 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
But don't just go, Mel, maybe we'll see. He's out a week or whatever. And then like the next week, he's out for another week. And, that stuff just is annoying for fantasy. And I don't really see the competitive advantage in it. Maybe somebody could explain that to me. Like, what is the competitive advantage of saying he's out for a week and then the next Monday saying he's out for a week? Like, are those teams really thinking that far ahead? Like,
yeah, that's completely confusing.
Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It makes zero. To me, it makes zero sense, and I honestly have no idea. I have no idea what the hell they were thinking. So, yeah, most hated team. Tyler takes the entire state of Minnesota down with him in his hate award.
The sad part is I love that team, and I love so many players on it.
Well, it's too late now. They don't allow you in the stadium anymore, and I'm not sure you're going to be welcomed in the state of Minnesota anymore.
Oh man, how will I live?
Yeah, I can't go that far in Minnesota because sometimes I'd like to vacation there, and I'd like to continue to visit the fine state of Minnesota with the fine people of Minnesota. Shout out to people who drink Grain Belt up in Minnesota, the best grain beer in Minnesota. This is a free ad for Grain Belt beer, apparently.
Maybe they'll send you, dude. Maybe if you clip that and send it to them, maybe they'll send you a sixer.
Yo, I think they would. In fact, Grain Belt, if you want to sponsor the show, like we're interested. We'll do it for beer. The final award in this, what is it? 2019? Jeez, wow! Sorry, 2019, 2018. Too. When you've done this many fantasy seasons, it's been a long.
Oh, let's face it. Mike's just out of touch with reality. He didn't know today was Thursday. He didn't know how much a pint of milk costs. He's just out of touch with reality.
What's a pint of milk like? $20, $25? Who knows? Nobody knows. Nobody cares. Yeah, it's been a weird week for me. It's been a weird month for me. The final third of this fantasy season felt like an entire season in itself. It's a long one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I always think when we get, especially if you're in a lot of head-to-head leagues, when the playoffs get, it's always a little more hectic, right? Because you're trying to maximize every matchup, and that can get a little bit crazy. And yeah, I don't know, man. The playoffs got crazy in my leagues this year. I can tell you that I got eliminated in 2 playoffs by we tied in steals, and that person beat me by tying me in steals.
Wow.
In two of my leagues. So that was kind of a bittersweet way to end your season.
Yeah, that sounds like a shit way to end your season. But the final award tonight is the most promising award, and this is going to go to the guy that either played well or played perfectly fine this season, but is someone that we think is the most promising.
I thought you were going a different way with this award. Like, I thought maybe you were going with, like, he's the next D'Angelo Russell or the next guy who's, like, going to take that leap.
Well, yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah, that's exactly where I'm going.
Right, but now he's going to be, like, a top, whatever guy. It's always a little crazy to say, like, top 20 because it's really hard to get in the top 20. But, like, maybe he's, like, a 50 guy and he's going to go up to, like, a 30 guy or, he's a 70 guy to a 50 guy. That's something in that kind of.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm going with this. It's kind of like someone you like really want to hitch your wagon to next season. Doesn't have to be a sleeper, but someone who maybe played well this year, maybe didn't play so well, but in the next few years or even just next season could be incredibly good. Someone who moves their way up into maybe that third tier. It gets out of the plateau region and into the tiers. I'm gonna have to copyright the tiers. I don't think I can copyright the word tier though.
Yeah, I mean that whole copyright thing is crazy.
Plateau, fantasy plateaus and fantasy tiers. You think that's copyrighted by now?
I don't think so. I think that's all you. Although you better not release this podcast because someone might go in there and take it.
If any of you listeners, if I go to the copyright office, I find out this is copyrighted after
last week,
sometime in the after April 11th, I'm gonna fine your ass. I promise.
So man, this one was a really hard one for me because there's a lot of guys I like, right? And there's a lot of guys who probably wouldn't sound that surprising if you picked.
There's a lot of promising guys out there.
So maybe I'll let you mention a guy first here, and then I'll mention a couple guys. If you got one that you're ready to mention, and if not, I will just mention my couple then.
I got a couple because I really couldn't pick on one. And I actually, I think I'll pick one, but I'll give honorable mention to the other one. Kelly Oubre Jr.
Ooh, all right, a good pick.
Worried
about that, but
I am worried about him too. But this is why I feel like he might be the most promising player. Once he was allowed to play, 32 plus minutes a game when he moved to Phoenix, he turned into a very good, almost basically an Otto Porter-esque type player who did everything fairly well. And if he could, improve a little bit at the age of 23, and here's the key thing, we've talked about this before, get 32 minutes a game next season, I think a lot of people will have Kelly Oubre off their radar, and he will be incredibly promising. I have my honorable mention, though, and it's Miles Turner. Miles Turner had a really good season, and I think a lot of people after last season were kind of out on him, and I find it pretty promising that he had such a good season, that he continues, and I think this is the most promising thing, continues to lead his team after Oladipo went down into the playoffs, and is kind of getting a bigger role, hitting more threes, and still keeping those blocks up around 2 blocks per game. So those are my two young promising guys, both 23 years old.
So I'll go with the guy you mentioned, Mitchell Robinson, right? We talk about him. If he could ever get, even 28 to 30 minutes a game, he's looking very, very promising, right?
Very promising. Though you got to wonder if the Whiteside Whiteside syndrome is going to happen where, Whiteside was getting like 5 blocks a game, and then they're like, you should play regular defense. And he's like, oh. And then he's down to like 2 blocks again.
I think we always see that, but we mentioned not that many guys getting 2 blocks. So I think that was another reason why Miles Turner was a great pick.
Absolutely.
Not that many guys getting that many blocks. Okay.
We were on Miles Turner this
Even if he still stays at like two blocks, he could probably get you over a steal a game. And he's probably going to push closer to 10 rebounds. And then he's got kind of 2 elite categories plus the steal. If he can get to like 14, 15 points, like Mitchell Robinson becomes super, super interesting then.
And he's not the worst free throw shooter.
Right. So I think that's kind of a guy that I was putting in my crosshairs.
I like that. I like him.
Going, yeah, all right. I can see some potential here to be great, right? And I guess maybe that's what we're looking for in this award,
potential to be great.
It's potential to be great. A couple other guys, Lauri Markkanen, right? He had a great 52 games.
I felt like too much of a homer saying Lauri Markkanen, but he is incredibly promising.
He averaged 9.1 rebounds a game this year, which I did not see that coming.
Yeah. And that was with, Robin Lopez on the floor. Like, Robin Lopez is a very good rebounder, very good offensive rebounder. And I love the idea of him and Wendell Carter Jr. Being able to spread the floor out, both. And Wendell Carter Jr.'s defense to Lowry's offense. So, like, both of those guys are on my radar for next year.
Yeah, and then maybe a third guy, and this one might be a surprise to you, and he's kind of in the same vein as Mitchell Robinson, and this was another very terrible move by the Lakers, right? Thomas Bryant. In 20 minutes a game, Thomas Bryant was pretty relevant, and we look at per 36-minute numbers, he was the 84th ranked player. Now, there's a lot of guys in this basketball monster list who've only played like 1 or 2 or 3 games. But, look at some of the guys like Thomas Bryant finished ahead of in per 36, DeMar DeRozan, Klay Thompson, Eric Favors, Otto Porter, Julius Randle. Like that's a lot of really good talent. Rudy Gobert below him. So I don't know. I just think Thomas Bryant could be an interesting guy if he ever got to be a starting center for somebody. Another guy who's going to get a lot of rebounds, block a few shots, shoot really good percentages. Yeah.
No, I mean, those are all really good, promising guys. And that's it for our annual Fantasy Basketball Awards. It's been a great season this year. It's been great having you guys listen to the podcast and support the podcast through patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. We will still be bringing you this podcast throughout the summer. We plan on talking about dynasty leagues. We're going to be doing probably a rookie draft right after the actual rookie draft. We'll be talking about the free agents that come across and really any topic that you guys are interested. Some of these promising players we're probably going to elaborate a little bit more on and do a deep dive into maybe possible sleepers for next year where we have people ranked. And like I said, if you have a topic that you want us to look into, if there's something that you as a listener want to hear, reach out to us. Give us feedback. You can find me at Watch the Boxes on Twitter. You can find Tyler at Tyler P. Watts, or you can get a hold of us through patreon.com/watchingtheboxes. Thanks for listening all season, guys. Like, you've been great. You've been really supportive. And, this has been our best season yet. And hopefully next season's even better. Thanks for everything you guys do. And we'll see you soon.